Hello, Seekers. Thank you for joining me today for this special episode talking about my first year in the TTRPG hobby, tabletop role-playing games. And of course, I am also playing them solo, so there's a little bit of a twist there. And I'm calling it my first year, but it has not actually been a full year that I've been playing. I started in April, so not quite a full year. So 2025 will be my first full year of playing. But naturally, I've learned a lot of things in this year, being that I was totally new to this hobby. And of course, I was not totally new to role-playing games, having played many video and computer games over the years, many of which are role-playing games. Role-playing games on the video game side, computer game side, were certainly one of my favorite genres to play, and especially in the last 7 to 10 years, probably what I spent the majority of my time playing. So to make the transition to tabletop role-playing games was not completely foreign to me, but the way that you have to process everything using your own brain as opposed to the computer helping you certainly is a big difference. Now, of course, you can have many different devices and things that can help you, so it's not to say that you have to play it that way, but I do really appreciate playing in a highly analog way. I like playing with physical objects, physical books, physical papers and pens and dice and that kind of thing. So that sort of rediscovering a physical outlet for game playing as opposed to, playing with a computer or video games has been very fascinating for me. And just that fact alone is something that has made the hobby very interesting for me. And it's something that I think is going to keep me playing it for years to come, because I don't know about you, I'm probably not the only person that is looking for more ways to do things that are away from screens and that give you sort of a connection, a grounding with the real world. And of course, books are something that can do that, I believe. Of course, they can give you entire other worlds as well, but there's always just something about holding the book in your hand. And that could be any kind of book, whether it's a tabletop role-playing game or a book that you're reading or a book that you're learning from. So there's just a very maybe almost retro quality, you could say, to it. In our digital world, there is a bit of a retro quality to having these physical game products, and that's something that I really like. And I think if the physical side of the tabletop games was to go away somehow, then it's very likely that I would lose my interest in the hobby. So that's just how it is for me. But that's just one of many things that has attracted me to the hobby. I think another big one, before I get too far into this, another big one would be just I think that there's a really good level of craft and writing within tabletop role-playing games. I actually think that the level of writing beats out the vast majority of video games. And so I really enjoy the very creative, very polished, and just imaginative and immersive writing that you can find in tabletop role-playing games. So if you're someone who does enjoy, reading books and stories and enjoys writing, I think you're going to find a lot of richness in this hobby that even within very, very high-end video games, you're not going to find as easily, I think. So that's something that I've enjoyed. There's quite a lot of complexity to the worlds and the craft that goes into tabletop role-playing games. So anyway, before I turn this into a huge ramble on role-playing games, let's talk about what we are here for today, because I do have an outline of what we're going to be doing. And before I get into that, though, an update on Carnage and Aether. So I've been talking for probably 5 or 6 weeks now about my playthrough trilogy coming for Carnage and Aether, and that is finally going to come. Some of you may know that I just wrapped up the latest Kernathal's Book of Masteries playthrough yesterday. So I'm now free to jump into Carnage and Aether. I'm going to be doing a playthrough trilogy on that, and when this is complete, which should hopefully be starting within the next couple days, I want to have the first part up. When this trilogy is complete, then I will have completed 3 trilogies, and I will open up the voting for which one people would like to see of the 3 games in a long form playthrough, and that's going to include Salvage and Sorcery, Dungeon Fantasy Warlock Knights, and also Carnage and Aether. So expect to see that finally coming very soon after many different delays and things kind of held that back. Okay, so let's go over what we are going to go over today. And that's, first off, is going to be the top 3 games of 2024. So I'm going to show you my top 3 games for this year. And these are not really going to be a surprise to anyone because these are games that I own, that I've played, and all of them have been played on the channel. So first we will go over those. Then we will go over the top 3 most wanted games of 2025. So the games that I am the most kind of hyped and excited for to get my hands on in 2025 and play. And some of them may not actually be available to play in 2025, but I think most of them will be. Maybe even all of them will be. And the next one is going to be the top 3 games that I most want to play that I already have right now. And I've already talked about most of these actually a little bit on the channel. So most of these are not going to be a huge surprise, but you might be a little bit surprised. And there are some things that are, there is a tie in here. And actually I have a tie in the top 3 most wanted as well. There was a couple games that I just couldn't cut from the list. So you can see what that is going to be. And then to wrap up, I'm going to talk about my top 3 solo tips. So I have been playing solo for about 8 months now, almost 8 months. And honestly, it's just been a massive, massive learning experience. But I do feel that I have at least something that I could say for tips, being that I have dedicated all of my game time to solo this year. So I think I have learned a little bit of stuff, but whether you find it useful or not, I just like to share what has worked for me, what has been the most helpful things for me. So I hope you will get something out of that. And one other thing to remember with this whole list is that this is just my list, and it's totally okay if you disagree or you have other games that you would like to talk about. Let me know what games you have enjoyed this year, or what you're most looking forward to in 2025, or what you're going to be playing soon, or what are some other tips that you might have for solo players, or what you think of the games or tips that I share. So it's totally okay to disagree. It's just my own list. Okay, so getting into my top 3 for 2024, we're going to start from number 3 and work our way to number 1. So this will be in a rank order there. So the third one is going to be Forbidden Lands. So Forbidden Lands is my first time playing a sandbox in the tabletop role-playing space. And on the video game side or computer game side, I really like open world sandbox games. And so to get to play something like that in the tabletop space was very interesting. It was also very intimidating, I think, just because of the sheer scale and the number of things that are going on in a game like this. So it took me a little while to work up the courage to actually approach a full-on sandbox game. And I think Forbidden Lands did a very good job of that. I have some small nitpicks of the game, but overall, it does an incredible job of immersing you in a open, sandbox world. And the way that Free League does these sort of like adventure books that are based on a certain geographic area. So, you have Raven's Purge that is just for the Ravenlands for your default area. And then you have like the Blood Marches, which is for that whole geographic area. And then you have the Bitter Reach, which is for that area. And more that are planned. I believe there's one coming for the Alderlands. And so I really love the way that they do that. I love how they give you this nice, big, beautiful map for all these different regions, and every region is sort of this like self-contained sandbox of just awesome stuff. And the way that they put together the different adventures and the lore, the way that they build the world through that, and all these different locations and the details, I think is just a huge strength of the game. And really, even if you are going to be playing like maybe with a different rule set, but you want to have a very, very nice, well done campaign or adventure setting to play in, then Forbidden Lands has got you covered, because these settings that they create are really excellent. And I really can't say enough about the world building and the settings and the kind of the fantasy vibe that you get from Forbidden Lands. It's really excellent. And of course, there are some official solo tools and rules for the game, so that as a solo gamer, of course, that's really welcome. And then of course, if you watched my playthrough, there are some really excellent community made tools and additions to the game as well. So yeah, this would be definitely a game that I would recommend to anybody who wants to play solo RPGs. It's not going to be the most simple or easy to get into if you are just starting in the hobby, but it would be well worth your time to get into it, and it's something that you can play for years to come. So that's number 3, Forbidden Lands. And number 2 is going to be Dungeon Fantasy. And Dungeon Fantasy is something that really kind of came to me out of nowhere. I never really had, like, I didn't see this game and think about it for months and months and dream about playing it. It's just something that I sort of fell into. And once I started to learn the system and understand how it works, I was just really sort of just taken with it. I think from the standpoint of a rules system, especially when it comes to character creation and combat, the Dungeon Fantasy system, which of course is powered by GURPS. It's a simplified version of GURPS. I think it's just a really, really beautiful system, and it's something that's been around for a long time. So there's a lot of different opinions on the system, but my humble opinion is that it's a just incredibly well designed rule set, and the books for Dungeon Fantasy are extremely well laid out. Everything is incredibly clear, and the level of organization and clarity that they bring to the rules is really something to be admired. And so I appreciate the game a lot from a systems standpoint. Now, the setting of Dungeon Fantasy itself, without any extra books or things like that, it's maybe not the most mind-blowing setting in the world, even though it does do a fairly good job of giving you a alternative to, say, something like Dungeons and Dragons. But when you introduce some of the other supplements, specifically the ones I believe from Gaming Ballistic, then you have a really, you have a very nice world going on, and a lot of nice story and background. And of course, Aether's Bane and Warlock Knight are something that I would highly recommend, because they greatly improve your ability to play the game solo, and it also gives you a great set of training wheels to get you into playing Dungeon Fantasy solo, because Dungeon Fantasy is certainly not designed as a solo game at all. So when you bring these into it as well, then you really have a very complete package that is a lot of fun, that I look forward to playing much more in the future. But yeah, once again, I think just the overall beauty of Dungeon Fantasy is that it is it's a more simplified version of GURPS, so it is a bit easier to learn than GURPS, even though it's certainly not the most simple RPG out there. But it's just a very nice system to work with. And as I said, the book, the rule books just have a lot of clarity. They're very, very well laid out, and they're really just a pleasure to work with as you learn the game and as you play the game. And there's a lot more that I could probably say about GURPS and things like that. Of course, GURPS has a really long history, and I think it's kind of a polarizing game. But I really believe that right now in 2024, going into 2025, I really believe that Dungeon Fantasy is something that a lot more people should check out. Okay, so let's get down to number one, and this is not going to be, I think, a big surprise to anyone who's been around my channel, but number one is, of course, Carnage, the Master of Darkness. And Carnage, yeah, it's there's probably not a lot of new things that I could say about it. You could watch my review if you have not already seen it, and to know in detail my thoughts on the game. So I was trying to think a little bit about some other things that I could say about the game that I haven't played, but of course it's worth repeating that it is my first game. It is my first tabletop RPG and my first solo game, and really, in my opinion, I couldn't have picked anything better. Now, I wouldn't say that it's the most simple or easy game to start with, but it's very, very well suited to solo play, and it's truly I think it's truly it's an inspiration, I think, within the solo community, just how well Carnage creates a solo game world for you to play in. And of course, it's a dungeon crawler, and I love dungeon crawlers. I come from playing a lot of dungeon crawlers on PC, in computer games and things like that. So a lot of things that really spoke to me with this game. It really inspired me with its setting and lore and the overall style. And I think even if you are not a tabletop role-playing fan or even a solo fan, I think that there's a lot of things that you could get inspired from with Carnage. It's kind of it's an inspiration, I think, in terms of world building and style and all of those kind of things. So even if you were into video games, or maybe you're a video game creator, or you're a writer or some kind, really any kind of creative person, I think that there's a creative person who likes games or stories. I think there's something that you could find as inspiration here, because it's just really a kind of a masterpiece, I think, of style and of world building and immersion. That's one thing about Carnage, is that you really get immersed into the game and into the darkness of just how difficult it can be. As playing your survivor is difficult, and the game itself, I would not say is incredibly difficult. I think there is Carnage has been talked about quite a bit on on social media and stuff like that, which very deservingly so. It definitely deserves all the attention that it gets, and I think there's a little bit of a reputation out there that this game is very complex and really crunchy and all that kind of stuff, and I really don't believe that the game is really crunchy or really complex. I think the biggest thing that you would need to focus on is you just have to pay attention to details. And it's not that you need to have an incredible amount of brain power and you need to be able to do, super advanced formulas in your head and stuff like that. You just have to kind of take things slow and pay attention to details. And of course, I've made more than my fair share of mistakes playing the game. Anyone who's watching my playthroughs, I've made a lot of mistakes. And that's actually something that I'll talk about in the solo tips. But if don't be afraid of this game if you want to play it. Don't be afraid that it's super crunchy and super crazy. You just got to take it slow and just pay attention to the details of what's going on. And if you do, the game will reward you, because Carnage is a very deep and rich experience. Yes, it's just a dungeon crawler. It's not a full-blown RPG. It doesn't compare to the scale of something like Forbidden Lands. But if you really get into the details of all the different things that happen, the different kinds of attacks, the different kinds of statuses, the different kinds of exploration, the different lore, the item generation, everything. If you get into those details and take your time, it will reward you with a very rich experience. And the game has a very tight gameplay loop, so it doesn't require all kinds of crazy brain power and abstract thinking. It's just a matter of watching those details and enjoying them. So anyway, I don't think I can say a whole lot more about Carnage for right now, but yeah, that is my number one game of 2024. Okay, so let's get into my top 3 most wanted games of 2025. Now, these are going to be games that have not been released yet, that are going to be coming up in 2025. And some of these may not actually be fully released and playable in 2025, although I would think that most of them will be. So third is actually going to be a tie. It's a tie between 2 games that, of course, I'm very excited to play, and that is going to be Carnage: The Hollow Realm, which is an upcoming kind of underground hex crawl for Carnage. So it's going to introduce hex crawling mechanics into Carnage. And the other part of this tie is going to be the Broken Empires, which I'll put a little something up here on the screen for Broken Empires. Broken Empires was developed by me, myself, and Dai, who a very well-known YouTuber in the RPG space and also in the solo space. And his game, The Broken Empires, has completed the Kickstarter fairly recently. I think it was back around the end of October, and it's expected to be fully released in October of next year, possibly a PDF version before that. But with Carnage, of course, I'm super excited to see an expanded world and to bring in some exploration of hex crawl exploration and that sort of thing. I think what I think about the Hollow Realm is that it's going to be kind of a bridge between the base Carnage dungeon crawl and the much later coming full Carnage RPG, which is, I think, probably for around 2026 sometime. You'd have to ask Alex T about that, but so yeah, for me, I kind of see it as maybe being a bridge between the two, because I don't think that the Hollow Realm, again, I'm just guessing here, I don't think the Hollow Realm is going to be a full-blown RPG, but it's going to start introducing more of those mechanics. You're going to have more, more NPCs, exploration on a larger scale, more different kinds of random events and locations and things like that. So, yeah, I think it'll be a really cool bridge between what we have here with a classic dungeon crawl and then into a full RPG, Carnage RPG, sometime in 2026. And then with the Broken Empires, I'm not super familiar with Me, Myself, and Die, with all of his content and his playthroughs and things like that. Even though I've definitely taken a look around, he has a lot of just a wealth of great knowledge about RPGs and like his Sage's Library series. I really enjoy a lot, and so I think that's something that he brings to the Broken Empire is just an incredible wealth of like encyclopedic knowledge of role-playing games, and I think he's taken a very bold and innovative approach to how he's put together the different rules that create the Broken Empires. And I also like that Trevor is, he's not afraid to introduce a little bit of crunchiness and a little bit of simulation aspects. And, I do like a little bit of that. I would probably prefer a game to be a little bit more on the complex side rather than a little bit more on the simple side. But yeah, so the Broken Empires, I think it's going to be a really, really nice meshing of different systems and just a really good level of complexity. Not too hard, not too easy, not too simple, not too complex. So that's why I'm looking forward to Carnage, the Hollow Realm, and the Broken Empires. And then the second game, Most Wanted of 2025, is going to be Mission X, which I'll put something on the screen for that. So Mission X is the best way to talk about it would be to call it like a sci-fi version of Dungeon Fantasy. So Dungeon Fantasy is, a kind of a simplified version of GURPS that's been specially created and refined to be a fantasy role-playing game. And that's what Mission X is in the sci-fi space. And that's a very simple description of it. I'm sure there's a lot more that could be said about it, but Mission X is going to be coming from Gaming Ballistic, which they are the creators of the Sather's Bane and the Warlock Knight series. And Mission X, I believe, is also going to be at least solo friendly. Maybe it may not have any kind of like dedicated solo mode, but I believe it is going to be a solo friendly game as well, to some extent anyway. But it's also going along with that that mindset of refining and paring down the GURPS tool set to create a very, very honed and streamlined system for different kinds of sci-fi adventures. And I think that what's going to make it a must-have game for me in 2025 is that they're really trying to streamline the game to be basically all the good things about GURPS and none of the bad things about GURPS, because GURPS does have a reputation about some things being really complicated and stuff like that. And GURPS not the easiest system to get into, and stuff that's derived from it maybe is not the easiest thing to get into. But with Mission X, they're really setting out to make it very accessible and very streamlined. And I think it's going to be really an awesome system that I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on. Okay, number 2 for the most want to play in 2025, or most wanted in 2025. Sorry, number 1 is going to be Sacrifice, the second edition. So I have right here, this is the first edition of Sacrifice. This is from Black Oath, from Alex T. Incense and Iron Role Playing. And I have not actually played the first edition of Sacrifice, but I have looked through it in a fair amount of detail, and I've also looked through several of the different supplements. There's 3 or 4 different supplements available for Sacrifice, the first edition as well. And I have to say that it's just similar to Carnage. It's really just an incredibly impressive game world building, lore, and just a very, very stylish game. And it really speaks to me, especially as a solo gamer. I think it really is going to offer an incredible experience. And so with Sacrifice 2E, you're going to have a greatly refined and expanded version of the first Sacrifice. And I have looked at some of the previews and things that Alex has talked about with Sacrifice, the second edition, and I'm really excited about the game, really hyped about it. There's so much cool stuff going on that Alex is working on, and I think it's going to be just, again, from a systems perspective, I think it's going to be an incredible mixture of all the different things that Alex has worked on, like Broken Shores and Kernathalis, and even some of his older games that that he doesn't possess anymore, like Disciples of Bone and Shadow. And so I think it's a really, really cool, just incredible mixture of all the things that makes Alex's games amazing. And of course, it's in a grimdark fantasy world, so you cannot beat that. So so Sacrifice 2nd edition, I believe it's going to be the definitive edition of Sacrifice, and that is my #1 most wanted game for 2025, and that one is going to be in a Kickstarter, I believe. So I'll be going all in on Sacrifice 2nd edition. Okay, so let's talk about my top 3 that I most want to play that I already have. My top 3 games that I already have that will be coming to the channel sometime. I would say, we're talking here probably over the next 3, 4, or 5 months. The games that I really most want to bring to the channel and play. And so number 3 is actually going to be a tie between 2 games, and that's going to be a tie between the One Ring and Doomsong. So Doomsong, I have done an overview video of Doomsong, so definitely check that out. It's an amazing game. It is definitely not designed for solo play, so there's going to be some work and planning involved to get it to the channel in solo. But I'm really looking forward to getting it to the channel in a solo game. But yeah, just check out the overview video, and you can learn a lot about Doomsong. Very impressive game. But the One Ring. This is one that really doesn't need any introduction. I'm sure the vast majority of you already know about this game, and you may even already have the game as well. I think what really put me over the edge with the One Ring is that, one, it does have different solo tools. You have the Strider mode, and then you also have solo tools and things in the Moria book. And then there's also a new Elven Lands book. I don't remember the name right now, but that also has another kind of solo mode in it. And so when you combine all these different solo things, and then of course just the fact that it's Lord of the Rings, I mean the most well-known fantasy series in existence, and definitely a lot of nostalgia for me, because of course I was into Lord of the Rings when I was a kid. It was definitely one of the first larger novels that I ever read, and so when you add all those things together, I'm really excited to play it. And I think with Moria, it's really cool because you can kind of do a dungeon crawl. So I'm actually kind of interested to see what it would be like to do this dungeon crawl in the Lord of the Rings setting, because of course I'm a big fan of dungeon crawls. So the way that I'm going to look at playing it is, probably starting out, somewhere traveling to Moria, doing a little bit of overland exploration, and then getting into the dungeon, and then just doing a big dungeon crawl in there and seeing how that goes. That's kind of the way that I would want to approach it. And so, I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and it'll be really cool to get into just to play in the world of the Lord of the Rings. So definitely looking forward to the One Ring and Doomsong. So then going to number 2 of the top 3 games that I most want to play that I already have. Number 2 is going to be Tales of Argosa. And I have backed Tales of Argosa, and I already have the PDF version. I'll put up a little picture here so you can see what Tales of Argosa is if you don't already know. I'm still waiting for the physical book right now. I believe it's going to arrive very soon. The physical books, I think, are shipping anytime now. And so I should have that in my hands very soon, probably within the next few weeks or month or so. Tales of Argosa is definitely one that looks really interesting to me. The system looks really cool. I like the fact that it's also kind of a low fantasy, little bit of simulation elements to it as well. So it's a system that really speaks to me, and all the the style of the game really looks like something that's right up my alley. And another thing that really kind of inspired me about the game is I'll put a link in the description, but the creator of Tales of Argosa, he actually has his own YouTube channel where he does some Let's Play or some playthrough videos, and he did a really cool short series where he played Tales of Argosa in the Bitter Reach from Forbidden Lands, and that was really cool. Like I really like that. Really cool mashup, and I haven't decided if I will just play Tales of Argosa with the setting that is, you know, written for the book, or if I would play it with Forbidden Lands when I do play it on the channel. But I'm highly intrigued. Let's say it was really cool to watch that, and so like I said, I'll link to that. But yeah, Tales of Argosa, just really cool system. I think it's going to be a really great system for playing fantasy sandboxes, and I think it's also a game that's probably going to see quite a number of more content in the future. And I think it already has several adventures, several like little kind of side adventures and things like that. And I think we could probably see some of these, you know, larger setting books and things for it in the future. So a very cool system that's got a lot of potential to grow. So that's Tales of Argosa. That's my number 2 for most want to play that I already have. And then the number 1 game that I most want to play that I already have is this beautiful book here, which is, or several books, Outcast Silver Raiders, occult medieval old school role playing, and this is by, sorry if I say any names wrong, by Isaac Van Dyne and Kim Diaz-Holm and Lex Rocket, and they have done just an amazing job with this game. It's really such a work of art. And the setting and everything really speaks to me. I think probably aside from Kernathalis and Sacrifice, this is the like number 1 setting that really just makes me want to dive into it. That really speaks to me, I think, you know, as a setting. And you've got 3 books with this, and a little let's see what this says here. So Outcast Silver Raiders is a blood-drenched occult medieval role-playing game in the old school tradition. And so they're going to be using, I believe this is kind of like, you know, like a BX clone. And it took me a while to even understand what a BX clone is. Like the first time I heard that when I got into the hobby, I was like, BX, what the hell is that? So I've only just recently learned kind of what a BX is. And so, yeah, a lot of people will say like, oh, this game is a BX clone and all that kind of thing. But what they've done here is they've gone so far above and beyond a clone, because they've put so much effort into creating this setting, creating the art, creating the vibe. And so definitely you'd be taking something away from the game if you were to call it a clone, because it's really a, you know, just a work of art. Absolutely. This, so you've got, you know, 3 books here. And then the setting that the game plays in is the Mythic North, a fully mapped setting with factions, encounters, towns, cities, dungeons. I mean, it's inspired by medieval Scotland. And I mean, this setting is, it's incredibly detailed. It's incredibly well realized. The rules are simple but complete, and it contains everything that you need to play. Now, again, this is another game that is not designed for solo, but certainly you can solo it. And once I finish my Carnage and Aether playthrough trilogy, I'm going to be looking at how I'm going to be soloing the game, and I'm actually probably going to be using the solo tools from the Sacrifice RPG from Black Oath, because you do have some GM-less tools in here. So that's probably what I'm going to be using to at least jumpstart my adventure in Outcast Silver Raiders. And I may also use something like Mythic Game Master Emulator if I need to as well. I may also pull from that a little bit. But so here, you know, you've got the referee's compendium, the player's guide, and the Mythic North. And the Mythic North is the setting, and this is a pretty thick book. There's just an absolute wealth of details here with this setting. And you know, as you can see, the game is just absolutely stunning in terms of the art and the style and the layout, and so just a real work of art. So I'm very much looking forward to getting into that. That is my number one that I most want to play of the games that I already have. And I believe if you combine these covers together, it actually creates a large picture. I think it's something like that. Yeah. So we have here a beautiful. This is actually what is on the Game Master screen, I believe. But yeah, so that's my number one most want to play that I already have. All right, and then we'll get into my top 3 solo tips. Okay, so my top 3 solo tips. These are things that through my time as a solo player, these are things that I've found for me to be the most valuable lessons to learn. And so it's just going to be, what works for me. But please feel free to disagree with these, or have other tips, or let me know, if there's another really big tip that you think I should be aware of to help with solo playing. And I haven't been solo playing for very long at all, so I'm always looking to learn new tips and advice, and I'm definitely far from an expert of solo playing. So don't take any of this as I'm trying to be any kind of authority on solo playing, but it's just what I've learned in my first 7 or 8 months. So my number 3 tip is going to be that you should get inspired. So when you are deciding what game you want to play, or even if you already have the game that you want to play, make sure that whatever game you're going to play, that you feel inspired by the game. And what does that mean? I mean, it means that there's something about that game that speaks to you personally. There's something about the art, or the style, or the setting, or the characters, or the character classes, the lore, anything that really speaks to you. And you could pick up a game maybe because you heard that it's really cool, or it's very popular, or whatever. But if the game doesn't speak to you in some way, then I would probably wait until later to play that game. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't play it or you shouldn't try it, but especially if you are new to tabletop RPGs or you're new to solo RPGs, I would try to find a game that really, really speaks to you, something that draws you in and makes you feel immersed. So Outcast Silver Raiders would be a good example for me. This is a game that when I look at the world, I just feel instantly drawn into it, and it's something that inspires me. And you want to be inspired because when you feel inspired, you're going to push through whatever challenges that you have to face in order to learn that game, and in order to, make that time that you need to make to play the game, and to get into it. Because obviously, getting into a lot of tabletop RPGs, it takes some time, it takes some effort and dedication to get into some games. And if you are inspired and immersed, I think you're just going to have so much more fun as well. So, once again, don't necessarily just play a game because it's really popular or because everyone is talking about it, or maybe don't play a game just because no one's talking about it. Play what absolutely speaks to you, especially if you are, a newer player. So just be, follow your heart, so to speak. Okay, so that's my 3rd tip. My 2nd tip is going to be, don't fear mistakes and have fun. And certainly I've learned this in my first year, or my first 7 or 8 months. I've made a ton of mistakes. I've made so many mistakes playing these games. And if I was to let every mistake that I've made affect me and discourage me, I would not even be playing games anymore. I wouldn't be playing role-playing games anymore. You are definitely going to make mistakes. And I think one of the biggest reasons for that is that these games are every bit as complex or more complex, than as a computer game. But you're processing, the vast majority of that, you're processing that in your head. You might have an iPad or something like that kind of helps you out a little bit, or you might use your computer, which I do. But unless you're playing, like in a VTT, something like that, a virtual tabletop, you are the one who's responsible for processing all this. And again, especially if you're playing solo, all that responsibility is on your shoulders. And even if you already have a lot of years as a tabletop player, you may come into solo and not have any experience as a game master. And if you don't have any experience as a game master, it's still going to be pretty difficult. So just give yourself some credit for how many things that you're learning, how much stuff that you're doing. You are being a player and a game master, and you are processing all this with your own brain. And again, if you're playing it analog and that kind of thing. So you're going to make mistakes, and definitely don't let those discourage you. And along with that, many games I have found have certain ways where you can play the game in a more simple way. A lot of games actually have rules that they classify as advanced rules, and so look at things like that too when you're playing a game. If the game has advanced rules, don't play with the advanced rules from the beginning, or look and see if there are any rules that you could simplify or even remove, because it's really a shame to not play a game just because there's a couple of rules or things that you think are too complicated, assuming that the game already speaks to you and is something that you want to try. So don't be afraid to put in a couple little bit of house rules here and there if you need to. Whatever you got to do to have fun, and to get into the game and enjoy that game that inspires you. All right, so my number one tip for solo playing is to get all of the player aids, get all of them. And when you're starting to learn a game and to play it, it's completely worth going and spending 30 minutes, even an hour or so, scour the internet. Look at Google, look at Discord, look at Reddit, look at Facebook, look all around, look at the official websites of the different games that you play. Look on other gaming forums and things like that. Look for any kind of aids that were made for the game. Some games do have really good quality official aids that were created by the author, and some games don't. But you'll find that the community has in the vast majority of games, there's somebody has created some really nice tools and player aids. And so whether it's an official player aid or it's a community created one, go out and find them and search them and use them. Print them out, have them handy, put them up on your computer, put them on your iPad, but just have them ready there and available to look at, because they're really an invaluable tool to inspire confidence, to speed up your play, to help you make fewer mistakes, and also to help you deal with more complexity, because you don't feel so overwhelmed when you have those player aids and things right there available for you. And so yeah, they're probably the single most helpful thing for me to be able to come to grips with the complexity of a game and to be able to play through it through the whole course of going through a session. Don't discount those. Put any time that you need to find those, because they're absolutely worth it in the end. And kind of a little other part to that is that when you are, looking for player aids and things like that with a certain game, that's a great time to engage with the community around that game. And especially compared to, video games, in my opinion, you're going to find that the communities around tabletop role-playing games they're very, very helpful. Everyone is just very nice and kind to deal with. And so that's a real strength of the tabletop role-playing community, is that we have, these excellent communities to discuss with. So when you are out there, looking for some player aids for a game, also talk with people and see, what do they think about playing the game, or let them know about any, questions that you have, because the tabletop role-playing community is super, super helpful and really great to deal with, and it's a real big strength, I think, of this hobby. So that is going to do it for this end of year special, my first year in tabletop role-playing games. And I really hope that any of this has been useful or enjoyable for you. And I look forward to bringing all these things to the channel in 2025. And I want to thank every single person out there, everyone who has viewed and liked videos, everyone who has subscribed. and engaged and offered their feedback. So thank you all very, very much. And it's really been a cool, it's really been a cool experience. I think to make this channel and to be where it is at right now. So, yep, just good luck in 2025 with your solo role playing, and I'll see you in the next one.